All right, this is the second to last lecture in our COVID series, and this is looking at life in quarantine. So very practical stuff. Do remember to watch all the videos, especially how to be safe, since only one person has watched that video so far. Before we get into this, I do need to address some more vaccine stuff. Sorry, but this is constantly changing and updating. This is real world. It's how science works, that we always go with whatever we have, the best evidence, because something is true in science until we get new evidence. And there is always more stuff coming out about the vaccines. How adenovirus vaccines works. This is AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, and Sputnik V. This is not quite as new as the mRNA virus of Pfizer and Moderna, but still relatively a novel concept. In the case of AstraZeneca, they take a modified chimpanzee virus, and all of the three companies' vaccines follow this procedure then from here on. They enter the cells. The virus, it's a virus that is not coronavirus, a different virus entirely that can enter your cells, but it is unable to replicate. It can't make copies of itself. They find a way to stop it from working. It's very effective. There's not a worry that it will get into you and start making copies. For instance, the chimpanzee virus doesn't work on humans, and these kinds of viruses are not good at suddenly replicating. The cell begins assembling mRNA, messenger RNA, which normally comes from our DNA. Our DNA turns into RNA, which turns into proteins. But retroviruses, like coronavirus, they're RNA viruses, and they make DNA from the RNA. So the cells begin assembling mRNA to make COVID spike proteins. Now, how do they do this? The viral DNA is carried by the adenovirus. The Russians and Americans and British, they insert some coronavirus material, the DNA for making the spike proteins. It's inserted into this adenovirus, this other virus, and then it carries it into the cell. This is not it's not, again, a concern for how it works, but when they take this DNA in, it is not put into your host DNA, into your nucleus where your DNA is. It's made outside the nucleus. And so the cell sees these instructions to make spike proteins. Some of those spike proteins, which belong to coronavirus, rise to the surface and then are recognized by the immune system, by your antibodies, white blood cells, that says, hey, we need to attack this. Now, the next time you are invaded by the actual coronavirus, you're good, because your cell already has a heads up. Hey, we know this is coming. Remember the Death Star scenario that we saw before. This is a way for your body to makes the proteins on the surface of the coronavirus, because that is what causes your body to recognize. It always recognizes the surface. It recognizes the surface of the virus, and without having all the nasty bad stuff of the virus that's inside the virus shell. We're just looking at the outer protein coat. So in our Star Wars analogy, this is very similar to the RNA viruses of Pfizer and Moderna, except for the beginning. This is the Millennium Falcon is carrying the plans to form the Death Star. And these adenoviruses are the Millennium Falcon. Now, because it's DNA, it's much more stable than RNA, which the benefit is that it is able to be stored at a much higher temperature. We don't need sub-zero temperatures because the DNA is so much more stable. The drawback is that Pfizer and Moderna, using RNA, it's faster and it's more efficacious. They have 95%, whereas these are somewhere between 70 to 90, these different vaccines that use the adenovirus. It also produces a very strong immune reaction, the adenovirus, so this is another benefit. Um, Moving to Sputnik V, this has just come out more recently. It's available here now, or will be soon here in the Philippines once we start getting vaccinated. There were, you might have heard, some concerns about Sputnik V that the Russians produced, that because stage 1 and 2 came out very fast, it seemed like they were promoting it. A lot of medical professionals were saying, wait, it seems like they cut corners in doing this. Since then, phase 3 of the testing has gone through, where there's over 3,000 people, and the esteemed journal Lancet, who at first criticized phase 1 and 2, as well as most of the medical community, have said, we've looked at the data, it looks solid, we have no more concerns. So the Sputnik V appears to be something that is safe. Another thing that you might have heard relates to abortion. You might have heard that these vaccines were using abortion, and this might be an ethical concern for some people, so let me address this. An aborted fetus in the 70s and the 80s, two different children, was used to make Johnson & Johnson, Sputnik V, and AstraZeneca, sort of. It wasn't actually the cells from that child, it was a clone line from these cells of those two babies. Some final stage testing is also done with a number of other COVID vaccines using this clonal line. So those three adenoviruses all were made using cloned cells of the fetal cells, but some final stage testing is also done with other COVID vaccines using this clonal line. It's up to you if you think that there's an ethics involved in that or not, but I should tell you also that the MMR vaccine and the chickenpox vaccine also used this same clonal line of cells from the aborted child. So they're rather ubiquitous. Again, it's not the original cells, it's clonal cells. And lastly, while we're still on vaccines, I wanted to look at vaccine problems. What can we predict might be some possible problems with getting the vaccine, some that we're already seeing. One, there's not enough equipment to deliver the vaccine. It needs a lot of equipment. Sub-zero fridges that are expensive, special syringes, just general syringes, and there can easily be shortages of that. We don't expect shortages of the vaccine. Not everyone and every country has enough right now, but eventually we expect to be enough. But it's getting all of that material that is going to be a problem. I've mentioned this before, people don't like getting a second dose. You get sick after the first dose, you'll get sick after the second. Why am I going to go back to the doctor to get the second? Well, because your first one is not as efficacious and it's not as long-lasting, it's temporary. A third problem is that doctors may bend the truth to get the individual patient the vaccine faster. When you look at that patient's chart, it's like, it looks like they've got a heart problem. Better bump them to the front of the line. Because doctors tend to care about the patient in front of them rather than society in general. Number 4, vaccines exacerbate the inequality in the healthcare system. This is within a nation in the United States where people of color are less likely to get vaccines, and it's all over the world. For instance, the US has the highest inoculation rate of anywhere in the world. There's over 100 million people have received the first vaccine, but the Philippines has still yet to get a vaccine beyond the initial frontline workers. So it's not available because we're a poorer country. And lastly, this is important, there can be a false sense of security that develops when we think we're now invulnerable. You have the vaccine and, hey, I'm Superman. I can go out there, I can do anything, I can take care of everything, I have no more worries. Well, the problem is when a vaccine is 95% effective, as it is with Pfizer and Moderna, everyone who gets it assumes that they are in the 95%. But that's not how statistics works. Someone's in the 5% where the vaccine did not work. 5% of people will get COVID. And you don't know if you're in that group or not. It's not a matter of being healthy and having a good immune system. You don't know. When they say 95% effective, they mean it. And remember that that's for the really good vaccines. We've got other ones like Sinovac that are 50% effective, which means 1 out of 2 people is not protected. Now, the good news is that a lot of these vaccines are finding that they are 95 to 100% effective against severe COVID. And so when they say they're 50% effective in general, that includes mild cases. So it is still worth getting a vaccine, even if you don't get the very best. Get whatever you can. I'm sorry, there was one more thing on vaccine that I'd forgotten to mention. Anti-vaxxers. They will amplify the side effects and say they're so bad, and they will lie. Sometimes knowingly, as in the case of the guy I mentioned in the UK who published in the Lancet before they were retracted, saying that the MMR vaccine caused autism, which there's no evidence for, but turned out he blatantly lied. Some anti-vaxxers will not realize that they're repeating other people's lies. But the vaccines are in general safe. They are safer than getting COVID. And when there are some mild cases, like I mentioned before of AstraZeneca, there is only a small number of cases that they're still investigating, but the WHO still recommends getting whatever vaccine you can. All right, let me get to the real purpose of this lecture, which is how life under COVID. Surprise, education is not doing well during COVID. I'm sure you didn't know that. Literacy learning rates for kindergarten age has slowed down in the United States by 66%. Darwin was attending preschool. He's 3 years old, remotely at American School Fez, and we gave up finally. We couldn't understand things through the video quality, and it was too difficult, even for half an hour 3 times a week, for a 3-year-old child to focus. It's not that much easier for a 5-year-old. And it's not that easy for you. I know that. None of us like this. We do it because duty of care, your safety and life comes first. And it is too dangerous to meet in person still. But if when we do this, it means that education is declining. It's very hard for students to focus. I'm sure you're not aware of this at all. But it's so difficult when you're not in class with everyone around you focused on studying, and there's no distractions from being at home, and you don't have someone saying, okay, now is the time to do this and this and this. I know some of you are doing better than others. I know you're trying. I know it's difficult. And you're not alone. It's all over the world, and it's not just students. It's adults when they go to work too. It's me too when I'm trying to prep lessons, when I'm trying to grade, and I have constant distractions at home. It is difficult. It is hard. We do it to stay safe. But it leads to less learning. The IB system suspended their tests last year and said they're just going to go with the general quality of the system and what you've learned so far, and there will be no tests. Colleges have a way of looking at where your eyes are going to see that you're not cheating online, but most high schools can't afford that. And it's difficult to do tests online. Europe is closing its schools again as they go through a third wave. And the UK variant, which is highly contagious, is spreading. And that's another problem, is the UK strain. It's only a matter of time before it gets to Morocco. It's here in the Philippines, it's in the UK, and throughout Europe, it's in the United States. It is spreading everywhere. And that's a reason why the Philippines just recently closed its borders, why Morocco has closed its borders to a number of European countries and other places. So, what is safe? Where can you go? What can you do? Life in COVID. First off, what's low risk? According to a survey of different experts in epidemiology, low risk, backyard gatherings with one other household. But bring your own materials. The food's not as important as much as the silverware, utensils, all that kind of thing. And a family you can trust is being safe, masking and social distancing when they go out. You need to absolutely trust your family, literally, with your life. What else is low risk? Having a friend use the toilet. Just clean it up afterward. Number 3, low risk. A vacation home with one other family. Unless they haven't been careful before, you must trust this family with your life. Quarantine 2 weeks beforehand, both families. Number 4, camping. Completely low risk. Go for it. You're out in the wilderness by yourselves with just your family. I know in the 8th grade we have Ilias. He's done that a number of times during this time of COVID. Number 5, low risk. Exercising outdoors. Low to medium risk. So this would be, if we were grading, this would be a B. Before it was an A. Low risk is an A, this is a B. Being at the pool or beach, as long as you are social distancing. And this is where, if you don't follow these caveats, the risk goes way up. Not the beaches in Florida that right after COVID started where everyone was cheek by jowl. Low risk, low to medium risk means social distancing. Number 2, low to medium risk, a B. A public toilet, as long as it's not a small, busy, poorly ventilated, uncleaned public toilet. Find one that's clean, not busy, well ventilated. Number 3 in the B's, a hotel, as long as you ask about cleaning procedures. Wipe everything down on high-touch surfaces. Remove the bedspread, as they don't usually change the bedspreads between guests. And if you shine a black light on that, in fact, forget COVID, always take the bedspread off. Number 4 in the B's. Oh, no, excuse me. We're now moving to medium risk. This would be medium to high risk. So this would be actually about a D. Eating indoors. That was just shut down in my area. This whole region of Morocco, not just our province, but all the provinces in the area, no more eating indoors. You can only go to restaurants for takeout and for a delivery. Outdoor weddings with more than 10 guests. That is a D. Getting a haircut. Medium to high risk. If you want to make it safer, make sure that both people wear masks, the cutter and the cutee, but still pretty dangerous. High risk. This would be an F as far as danger. Going to the mosque. You've got one person who is yelling out the adhan. You've got some other, on Fridays, you've got the imam giving us khutbah. You've got everyone saying the shahada and praying. That's a lot of speaking going on, a lot of people close to each other. High risk. Also, ironically, in the same category, a nightclub. Lots of dancing, lots of moving, lots of people, lots of talking. Thankfully, as Muhammad ﷺ said, all a Muslim needs for a mosque is their prayer mat, and they can pray anywhere in the world. Moving on to other things about life under quarantine, the world's getting better environmentally. Smog is going down all over the planet. Wildlife are showing up everywhere. We've got goats and wolves, and coyotes and panthers in the middle of cities suddenly. And it's not like we're being invaded. The animals were already there in the area, but they were shy, shema, of humans, even predators like a panther. And now there's no humans around because we're all hiding. The big thing I want to talk about is the psychological effect. What effect is this having on us? And that is related to the education I mentioned earlier. When psychologists are consulted, they're saying that we're finding that our surge capacity is depleted. That's the capacity we have for stressful situations. Our emergency phase has become chronic. High stress is bad for our systems. You have adrenaline that's pumped through your body for an emergency. The saber-toothed tiger is about to attack you. You need to fight or flee. Hint, if it's a saber-toothed tiger, flee. But what if that saber-toothed tiger is attacking you for hours and days and months and years? The adrenaline keeps on going in your body, and that is not good for your body system. We are feeling like we're being chased by a tiger for months now. It's kind of like depression, but not quite. How do you adjust to an ever-changing situation when the new normal is indefinite? How long is this going to last? How bad is the long going to last? Is it going to get partially better for how long and then a lot better after a while? We don't know. It's normal in this situation to get exhausted and to have ups and downs. And it's normal for your immune system to be affected, ironically. This is ambiguous loss, a loss that is unclear and lacks resolution. What have we lost? Our way of life. We've lost it for a year now, and we might be to some extent losing it forever. We don't know if we'll be able to ever go out without wearing a mask and shield and be safe. So, what do? We accept that life is different now. Expect less of yourself. Recognize the stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, in any order. If you are feeling one of those 5 things, they don't have to be in order. Recognize that in yourself. Accept it. Don't stay in the rational when everything is irrational. What is insanity? The definition of insanity is a sane response to insane situations. Go with both and thinking. This is terrible, and people are dying, but the family can come closer together. Say to yourself, I'm competent, I can do this, and I can flow with the tide. It's an old Saturday Night Live joke. I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, doggone it, people like me. We need to remind ourselves of this. Look for new and old activities that you enjoy. The ones that you enjoyed before, do them. Find new ones as well. Focus in this time on maintaining and strengthening important relationships. Because at the end of the day, those are what matter most.